Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, Chapter 2, and we will be covering verses 2 to 1 to 2 to 7. Marital matters and their importance. And this includes the marriage as well. These are the references, and this is our contact. Recap of verses 219 to 220. If you remember, we covered this presentation on 9th of August. After answering two questions about helping others and about fighting, the next question which the Quran addresses is about the use of khamr and maisar. And khamr is generally taken as alcohol and maisar is generally taken as gambling, normally translated as the imbibing of alcohol and the practice of gambling. The Quran tells us that though there are some benefits, that is, there are short-term benefits in these two, their adverse effects are major, which lead to many problems in the long term. So as we know that the Quran wants us to take not only the short-term view of our actions, but also of long-term views. And when it says long-term views, it includes the life of the hereafter as well. The term used is itham, which means that they give rise to both individual and collective sluggishness, fatigue, despair, lagging behind, etc. This includes all those deeds which produce weakness and debility in the human self. The Quran wants us to employ our intellect and reasoning to the optimum by acting within the domain of its permanent values, and as a consequence to lead the whole of humanity towards prosperity and success in this life and to evolve further in the life of the hereafter. Because if we look at the Quran, there is a very frequent reference to thinking, reflecting, and reasoning in every choice which we make in our life. Quran helps us to make those choices under the permanent values so that we always get precisely good results in our life, so that this life of ours gets better as well as we get onto a higher level of existence in the hereafter. So that is why mind has been given to us, intellect is provided to us to be utilized to its optimum. The next question is linked to this verse 215, where the Quran has directed the Momineen to make available for the system whatever is beyond their needs, so that it can centrally administer the economic aspect on an equitable basis. Then the Quran has answered the question regarding those who are yatim, that is, those who are left alone in the society, and that includes orphans whose parents are dead in society, and provided guidance by instructing to treat them as your brothers, that is, equals as human beings, and to manage their matters with justice, to never let personal interest intervene in the management of their matters. It was a quite good session, and we should go through it few times in order to come to grips with our own cognitive abilities. Outline of today's presentation, that is verses 221 to 227. After highlighting the issues regarding khamr and maisar and making available what is beyond need and justice for those who are yatim, the Quran now addresses some important matters pertaining to marital relations. The family, which is centered around husband, that is man, and wife, woman, is the basic unit of any human system. I put down here in bracket man and woman because there is a lot going on in today's world under LGBTQ agenda. The first issue is the selection of a spouse, and for this the Quran has declared having Eimaan to be an ideological prerequisite to get married. If the ideology of life as put forward by the Quran is not shared by the potential couple getting married, then they will start on a wrong foundation, even if initially there is an attraction of appearance, physical attraction, emotive love, and other material benefits. We know that the Quran puts extreme emphasis on getting our ideology right. And this ideology, it says, must include the development of ourself and its life beyond our physical world. Why did Allah put an emphasis on Eimaan? All other aspects, for example, physical beauty, withers with age, while ideology continues and contributes to the life of the hereafter, i.e., the marriage based on Eimaan is related to the self's development. Because at self's level, we don't age, our thoughts don't grow old. We have a same self when we were young, and we will have the same sense of identity when we are about to leave this life. So self-development should form the focus of our work in this world. The Quran then declares that women being mothers have an important role to play in the education and training of future generations of the society. And this is a biological fact that children are more attached biologically with their mother, at least in the initial years of their upbringing. This means that all those getting married need to apprise themselves with the fundamentals of the system of Deen. Some guidelines are to be provided to men to keep these in mind in their conduct as husbands and not to resort to impulsiveness in marriage, i.e., to flare up emotively and end up making wrong decisions. Very important aspect, we'll go through it in some detail. This aspect will form part of the training of potential couples aiming to get married. For divorce, the Quran has outlined the procedure under the system of Deen, and this aspect will be covered in our next session. Now let us go through some basics of the human psyche we need to know. Now some of these slides, which I'm going to show next, have been covered under a session we had, I think, back in 2021 on marriage. And I shared it in our forum, so we should go through it in our own time. As humans, we possess desires, emotions, and intellect. So there is an interconnection between these. Biological aspects of being man and woman, different roles while possessing the same self. So that is important aspect we should keep in mind, that while biologically man and woman are different, but they possess exactly the same self. Each individual thinks of his or her own happiness and wishes to minimize their own pain. And this is our basic position as human beings. Our existence is very much deeply seated in our physical makeup, for example, appearance, outlook, figure, color, race, gender, strength, psyche, etc. The way people talk to us, we judge them as well. So this is an important aspect to be kept in mind while we are going through this session. We have certain basic traits and thinking patterns as human beings which affect our choice and intent, i.e., decision making in our daily life. Our environment and circumstances have a very strong influence on our psyche. For example, children brought up in different families will have different outlook because of the effect of their family, and then of course their schooling, and later on as they go through their jobs as well. Most people are not fully cognizant of the existence of the law of requital and its functioning. We have gone through this aspect previously as well, and we might have heard this term unintended consequences, which means people want to follow a certain course of action in life, but they do not want any negative aspects of following that course of action. Whereas law of requital clearly states that whatever path you follow in life, you simply cannot avoid the consequences of following that path. We recognize bad more than good. Very important aspect in our life. And that is why even on small things, people break up their friendships, break up their relationships, even children move away from parents on some one bad thing with which they get annoyed. An important point to be kept in mind in a mutual relationship, to keep reminding oneself for all the good in the marriage partner. That is why Quran emphasizes again and again that the balance of deeds will decide how yourself will develop. So if you have done a lot of good, then that good should be recognized by others as well, and vice versa. We should also recognize good in others as well, and not to break our relationship on one error of judgment somewhere. To know basic limitations and weaknesses as listed by the Quran, this helps to monitor progress in the development of the self. Every individual wishes to have economic security. In a non-Quranic system, success is defined based on this value. We have gone through this aspect previously as well, and we should keep in mind that we have to grow out of this economic security. That is, first you provide economic security, and then people should be given motivation and attraction and education to develop their self. Our sense of being at any one point is our sense of self. Our thoughts come before our actions, however short-lived they may be. For example, impulsiveness, rage, anger. A lot of this road rage is impulsiveness in individuals, and they get annoyed, but there is always some kind of a thought before their reaction. Let's go to next slide. Some basic states of Adam as noted by the Quran. We have gone through these aspects previously as well, but it is good to remind, particularly in this context, and all those couples who are wishing to get married, they should keep these things in mind, that they have to overcome these vulnerabilities and weaknesses and limitations within them. Man was created weak, and we should keep in mind that it is Allah stating this, declaring this in the Quran. Man is a creature of haste, that is, man wants quick results. For man is miserly, and we know that man loves money, wealth, because it gives him some advantage and also power. That is why Quran says, وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. Despite having affection for wealth, make it available for others. He was indeed zalim and jahil. And zalim is the one who is doing injustice not only to himself but to others. Because when we do injustice to others, we actually do injustice to our own self. And jahil is the one who ignores deliberately. He knows that he shouldn't be doing it, still he insists on doing it. Man has no nature, fitrat. He is shown two paths and possesses choice. And we can check it. There is no fitrat of human beings like animals, because we can make decisions, we can make choices. Man is competitive in material things. Man thinks his life in this world is play and amusement, and we can see plenty of these examples in the world of 2026. Man finds an attraction in riches, children, spouses, etc. Man shuts down his heart, mind, hearing, and eyes from truth because he doesn't want to face the reality. He doesn't want to face the accountability of his actions. Man follows the wrong path for a long time, then his heart can become hardened. Prefers this life over the life of the hereafter. And we do hear some people say that whatever good has to come to us, it is better that we get it here in this life. Man forgets his accountability. Man gives less to others and takes more. Whole capitalist system is based on this exploitation, does not value humanity. And when man thinks like that and does it, that means he is valuing others less than their own self. Because if we are equal, then he should value other human beings as equals. Indulges in vain talk, plenty of it going on in the world, and thus remains oblivious of the purpose of his creation. So it is important that we should avoid vain talk, because that is waste of our energy and it only creates more frustration. In a position of power, forms parties and divides mankind, subjects equal human beings to tyrannical rule, and this exists at all levels. We should not only think that it is the leaders who do it, husbands do it to their wives, wives do it to others, that is their children and their daughter-in-laws and others. So with that context in mind, we should be very clear that what kind of psyche we possess before we are getting married and how are we going to deal with this psyche. And this is why Quran is asking us to change our psyche before we get married. Through Eimaan, we desire to grow out of these limitations and weaknesses, firstly by recognizing these and their effects on us and on the world. Secondly, by using the guidance of the Quranic value system, acquire and develop a self that is new life based on our efforts and achievements. Ground realities of living in a non-Quranic system. We need education, essential to know the word and the system of Deen. Educate means to support a family and its future increasing needs. That is important for couples to know that what kind of support they will require in the future once they bring children into this world. Savings for rainy days, some kind of security, a reliable and stable job. Ideally, both partners to be working part-time work, hence empowerment through education, training, and skills. This is not an ideal situation because mother should be available for children, but that is the reality of today's non-Quranic system. Extended family support to bring up the children, the husband and wife's parents. The means to help others, that is, while they are struggling with their life, if they are Momineen, then they have to do some solid deeds to bring out their latent potentials, which can help them to contribute towards the efforts on the path of Deen. In the case of a business, all of the above will apply. So I put down these as job if people are working for somebody else. And then, of course, if people own their own business, then they have to keep these things in mind. Be prepared to move or migrate. Remember, nothing is stable in a non-Quranic system. Basic needs of life, means of sustenance, health, education, security, a stable source of income, social relations, all these are included in basic needs of life. The Quran has given full freedom to man and woman to make their choices. These choices are limited by the system in which we live. Very important statement that we should recognize the limitations of the system in which we are living, and we intend to bring our children in this system. Culturally, across the world, men have a dominant role in this respect. That is why Quran is mostly addressing men to put the world right, because they have strength. We should keep in mind taqwa as per this verse. Now let us go to the first verse of today's session, verse 2 to 1, significance of Eimaan in marriage highlighted. وَلَا تَنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكَاتِ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنَّ وَلَا أَمَةٌ مُؤْمِنَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكَاتٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَتْكُمْ وَلَا تُنْكِحُوا الْمُشْرِكِينَ حَتَّى يُؤْمِنُوا وَلَا عَبْدٌ مُؤْمِنٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن مُشْرِكٍ وَلَوْ أَعْجَبَكُمْ أُولَٰئِكَ يَدْعُونَ إِلَى النَّارِ وَاللَّهُ يَدْعُو إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ وَالْمَغْفِرَةِ بِإِذْنِهِ وَيُبَيِّنُ آيَاتِهِ لِلنَّاسِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَتَذَكَّرُونَ. I've highlighted few parts of the verse over here. The paradisiacal society in whose pursuit you are, its beginning takes place from the life of your home. Hence, foremost, it is incumbent on you that you make your home into a Jannat, that is a paradise. For this, the fundamental question is that according to which criterion should the selection of a husband and wife be? It should be based on that same criterion according to which your ummah becomes shaped, i.e., on the commonality of ideology. Your ideology is that obedience is only to the laws of one Allah. No one else can be included in this. Hence, it is essential for the husband and wife that they concur on one ideology. I've highlighted on this because it is important that both of them should have same ideology, because they are on the same journey of life, which does not end with death. Furthermore, do not marry any mushrik woman until the time that she accepts Eimaan. See over here, very important that Quran has mentioned mushrik, not kafir. And the reason is that Quran knows that people of the book, all people of the book, they associate partners with Allah. A concubine who is Momin is better than a free mushrik woman, no matter how alluring the latter may appear in your eyes. So Quran takes away all kinds of attractions, allurements of physical appearance. Similarly, Momin women should not marry mushrik men until the time they accept Eimaan. A Momin slave is better than a free mushrik man, no matter how attractive the latter may appear. This is because to put together at one place those holding opposing ideologies will create hell. Very important to understand that if our ideologies are different, then we will create problems within our families. Hence, the law of Allah stops you from doing this. He wishes to bestow on you the comforts of Jannat in your domestic life and wishes to keep you protected from every kind of danger. In this way, Allah makes His commands clear to people so that they can see the reality unveiled before them. So this means that if couples are getting married, then they should keep this criteria in mind. And if they are already married, then they should come to some conclusion on a common ideology of life by accepting Eimaan in the Quran and then put their life on Sirat-e-Mustaqim, that is the straight path defined by the Quran. So it is achievable. And once they are on this path, after accepting this Eimaan, the change which will come within those individuals as well as in the family will become an evidence of the truth of what is stated over here. Let us go to next slide, translation and its limitations. So I've included these some translations over here just to guide ourselves that what are the limitations of these translations. Commonplace translation, do not marry unbelieving women until they believe. See over here, it is not shirk but unbelieving. A slave woman who believes is better than an unbelieving woman even though she allures you. Nor marry, and over here they have added your girls, to unbelievers until they believe. A man slave who believes is better than an unbeliever even though he allures you. Unbelievers do but beckon you to the fire. But Allah beckons by His grace to the garden of bliss and forgiveness and makes His signs clear to mankind that they may receive admonition. Now, some comments I put down over here, a few issues with this translation. The term used is mushrik, not kafir. Mushrikeen are those who associate man-made laws with the Quranic laws, i.e. the people of the book, which includes all sectarian Muslims. So this is important. The wording of your girls is included, and this is to exercise control on women, and that is why they have included this, whereas in the verse it is not mentioned. Which takes away the freedom to choose by women based on the guidance of this verse. The verse does not say this. This is blatant tampering against the Quran. Iman is translated as belief, not conviction. The issue of a common ideology of Iman is vague, and the matter is left to Allah and His forgiveness. And this is a problem with this translation. Not making it crystal clear that by going against this clear guidance, the marital life of a Momin will become hellish by marrying the wrong person. And Momin over here could also mean Mominat. So important is that what Quran is saying is that your ideology should be one, and as and when your ideology will be in line with the Quran, your common life, your marital life will start becoming excellent. Let's go to the next slide, further elaboration of this verse. The reference to concubines and slaves in this verse is due to the existence of this category of human beings during the era of ignorance in Arabia before the advent of Islam. The Quran made these slaves and concubines a part of society gradually and shut the gate to every kind of slavery for all times. Hence, this part of the verse will become applicable if mankind again goes backward and again espouses the evil of slavery, as happened during Mulukiyat and during the so-called enlightened Western civilization, because Muslims left Islam of the Quran. Commencing from verse 177, we have seen that the system of Deen and its constituents are being put forward for the Momineen, i.e. the system of Deen is in place. So we should keep in mind that this verse is in the Quran after the system of Deen has been established, but that doesn't mean that we cannot follow it even under the man-made system. Obviously, we will have to look for people who meet this criteria of Iman. However, some of these values can be applied even under man-made systems at the family level, for example, in the selection of a partner for marriage. Iman is a prerequisite for both the potential husband and wife. We should keep in mind that getting married is not a duty as portrayed under religion. It is predicated on the means to support a family. For example, Quran says, "Let those who find not the wherewithal for marriage keep themselves chaste." until Allah gives them means out of His grace. That is, it is the responsibility of the Islamic system. Means must be available to the couple in order to support themselves. And we see, particularly under the sectarian Islam, people get, particularly girls, married even if they cannot support or meet this criteria. It is the responsibility of the system of Deen. Marry those among you who are single, the virtuous ones among your people, that is ibad, male or female. If they are in poverty, Allah will give them means out of His grace. The system is again made responsible over here. So these both verses are addressed to Momineen. Let us go to the next verse, 222, further guideline regarding female menstrual cycles, and see how much detail Quran has covered, even using the veiled language. وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْمَحِيضِ قُلْ هُوَ أَذًى فَاعْتَزِلُوا النِّسَاءَ فِي الْمَحِيضِ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ التَّوَّابِينَ وَيُحِبُّ الْمُتَطَهِّرِينَ. After nikah, the question of intimate marital relations appears before us, and this should be avoided during the time of menstruation. This is because the menstrual cycle engenders a kind of distress, and coitus during this time is a cause for harm. Hence, do not approach your wives during this phase until they are relieved of it. When this phase comes to an end, then you can have intimate relations with them in the way that Allah's physical law of reproduction guides you. If you did not use to do this previously, then return to the correct path now. According to the law of Allah, it is only those people who are acceptable who adopt the correct path, having abandoned the wrong path and staying far from unpleasant matters. Next slide, further guidance for marital matters. After marriage has taken place between two Momineen, the Quran invites us to use this opportunity to contribute to our self-development on a continuous basis and to grow out of the biological affinity of sexual desire. This is very important for us to take away from the Quran, and particularly in relation to marriage, that marriage is to bring progeny into this life and then providing them correct environment for them to become Momin and use their correct choices. Nothing more than that. And that should be kept in mind. And what is happening in the world of 2026, where marriage has gone to the background and sexual pleasures have become the focus of attention. It has provided guidance in this regard by stating, Mosinina gaira musafihina, desiring chastity, not lust. The same instruction is provided to women, where Quran says, Mosanatin gaira musafihatin. Here the Quran has provided guidance regarding menses, about which men need to be fully aware of. Some education is required on the biological and psychological aspects of the menstrual cycle. And this is another very important part of education and training of youth. This instruction also repudiates the superstition that during this cycle women are impure and should be segregated. This is rejected by the Quran. It has noted here the specific biological state which is related to the intimate marital relationship between husband and wife. By concluding the verse by saying, Inna Allaha yuhibbul tawwabina wa yuhibbul mutatahirin, the Quran has made it clear that move away from the past and remember that for self-development it is important that both the mind and body should remain in a clean and purified state. Keep your thoughts focused on the higher and lofty aim of life and grow out from the biological makeup using the guidance of Allah. Next verse, 223, the future of a nation depends on family matters. Nisaukum harsul lakum fatu harsakum anna shaytum wa qaddimu li anfusikum wattaqullaha wa alamu annakum mulaquhu wa bashiril Momineen. Again, I've highlighted some important aspects within this verse. In matters of intimate relations between husband and wife, remember this principle that the purpose of this is procreation, to give birth to progeny. Nothing more, nothing less. And this is very important to take away from today's presentation in relation to marriage. From this aspect, the simile of your wives is like that of a field, because they are going to be mothers. The way in which the farmer plants seeds at that time when his objective is to grow crops, in the same way you too should go into your field when you wish to create progeny. But together with this, also understand this reality that the aim and ultimate goal of human life is not just that of producing progeny. The real aim is to develop your own self. So that we should keep in mind and pass it on to our children as well, and of course all those with whom we are friendly, that what is the purpose of human life? We should grow out of the biological affinities. Eternal life is achieved through the survival of the self, not through progeny. Hence, you should also monitor what have you done for the survival of the self. And that is why over here I've highlighted وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ, that what you are sending forward. Quran has repeatedly asked us to see what we are sending forward. Because after a while, when we age, we are going to meet the consequences of our deeds which we had sent forward in the past. The procedure for this is that you should always follow the laws of Allah and keep this reality in mind that you cannot escape the grip of the law of requital of Allah. And over here Quran has said, وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ. It's a beautiful part of the verse where Quran says that you are going to meet Allah, which means you are going to meet the consequences of your deeds according to His law of requital. You will have to face it. The prosperities of life are only for those who maintain Eimaan in this reality. So Quran puts extreme seriousness on our existence in this life, because rest of our eternal life depends on what we do over here, and marital relations have a great significance in those achievements. Commonplace translation of this verse is, your wives are as a tilth unto you, so approach your tilth when or how you will. But do some good act for your souls beforehand, and fear Allah, and know that you are to meet Him in the hereafter, and give these good tidings to those who believe. Because under the domain of religion, everything is left for the hereafter, and over here is that you just enjoy the sexual part of it. The sexual nuance is clearly seen in this translation, which is against the overall righteous teaching of the Quran, whose focus is on the development of the self, and rest we can figure out ourselves. Next slide is importance of the family as a basic unit under Deen. The Quran has used the simile of an agricultural field, a seed and its fruition in a number of verses. This refers to human efforts and striving on the path of Allah, and if these are in line with the permanent values and divine attributes, then they are bound to lead to fruition, just like a field of crops. The Quran is asking us that you should bring out children when you are ready for that, and then bring them up within the permanent values of the Quran if you want to enjoy the fruits of your efforts. Because whatever you invest in their life, in the initial stages of their life, you will be reaping those benefits in the later part of your life, and of course they will benefit as well. In this verse, the Quran has referred to the fact that the family, being the basic unit of the system of Deen, should be treated like a field in which we grow the future generation of a nation. We should view this very seriously, taking into account the guidance of Allah. By stating, Harsakum anna shaytum, it has placed a clear choice before us. By taking the path of the Quran, the results will be as noted in it. So it is our choice that what kind of progeny we wish to bring into this life, and what are the circumstances in which we are bringing into this life. And obviously under the man-made system, there will be a lot of challenges faced by husband and wife who have Eimaan. Then it is clarified by stating, وَقَدِّمُوا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ, and we know what it means to be muttaqi. Send forward for your future by taking all precautions and avoiding the pitfalls of the system in which you are living. So that means we should be fully aware of as many pitfalls of our future life within the man-made system as possible, and then work for the system of Deen so that we can establish a system which is free from these pitfalls. Keep in mind that the law of requital of Allah takes into account all your strivings on this path of your choice. And this is a beautiful part of this verse, Wattakullaha. What Quran is saying is that if you stick to Allah's rope, Allah's message, then you will not be disappointed. You will get good results. Then the verse concludes beautifully with the glad tidings of وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ مُلَاقُوهُ وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And this is a beautiful part of this verse, وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Keep in mind that you are to meet him. That is, the law of requital is with you 24/7. And give glad tidings to the Jamaat-e-Momineen, i.e. their efforts simply cannot go to waste. So each one of us should be in that position to assure our own self that there is going to be a better future awaiting us. But at the same time, we should tell others as well that you can also benefit from these sessions and from the Quran. Let's go to the next verse, 2 to 4, on the issue of taking oaths seriously. وَلَا تَجْعَلُوا اللَّهَ عُرْضَةً لِإِيمَانِكُمْ أَن تَبَرُّوا وَتَتَّقُوا وَتُصْلِحُوا بَيْنَ النَّاسِ وَاللَّهُ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. In connection with family life, the other point to remember is that some people take some kind of idle oath that I will not do such and such a task. Then when they are asked to do some acts of welfare and righteousness and works of reformation among people, they say that we have taken an oath, hence we cannot partake in these works. And they forget that Allah hears and knows all things, which means that whatever you are doing and whatever you are uttering from your tongues, you are accountable for that. And that is why we should be very careful in using these terms like inshallah, mashallah, alhamdulillah. All these terms have certain context in which these should be used, and we should use them only in the correct context, not here and there, and make it as part of our routine speech. Commonplace translation. And make not Allah's name in your oaths against doing good, or acting rightly, or making peace between persons, for Allah is one who hears and knows all things. Let's go to the next slide. The Quran places great emphasis on word and deed. According to the law of requital, our thoughts and deeds always leave an imprint on ourself, whether it is temporary or permanent, depending on our intentions. The Quran has made it absolutely clear that our self develops in direct proportion to what we think and do. And see, these are very important aspects within the marital relation as well, because whatever we say, our wife says, our husband says, that has consequences, and the other partner will take it seriously. So we should not say things which we don't mean. And if we have made a mistake, then we should quickly apologize as well and never to do it again. Here it has cited the aspect of uttering an oath which is not in line with the guidance of the Quran for Momineen, and has instructed us to become fully aware of all our thoughts and words and their consequences on our behavior. This aspect will form part of the psychological education under the system of Deen. Because whatever we say, even in our day-to-day business, even while talking to children, it has an impact. So we should never, for example, make a false promise to children if we are not going to carry out that promise. Similarly, never ever to make any misstatement. So essentially, Quran is asking us to control our thought and speech. We simply cannot form the intention of not extending help to others based on some flimsy grounds, for example, prejudice, dislike, some disagreements with those whom we are to help. All these issues are related to the transitory period during which the system of Deen is heading towards its ultimate maturity. In verse, for example, 24, 22, Quran has said, and I'll just go through the translation, Let not those among you who are endued with ample means resolve by oath against helping their near ones, the miskeen, those who left their homes in the cause of Allah. Let them overlook and forego. And this is in case we can afford to help others, and if we are already helping them, and if we have got annoyed with them or angry on some flimsy ground, then we might stop giving them help. Quran strictly forbids us from doing that. Do you not wish that Allah should provide protection to you? That is, Quran is asking us to rise above our basic fundamental, our basic emotive level and grow ourselves under the value system of the Quran in order to develop ourselves for the system of Deen. Allah is a Ghafoor and Rahim, which means that if we continue with our commitments, irrespective of what others have said, and if others need physical needs, we should continue with that, irrespective of our any sour relationships with these people. Next verse, 225, taking care of our thoughts and deeds. La yu'akhizukumullahu bil-lagwi fi imanikum walakin yu'akhizukum bima kasabat qulubukum wallahu ghafurun halim. Remember, Allah does not hold you accountable for these kinds of idle oaths which you utter without thought and deliberation. So that doesn't mean that we should continue with those. What Quran is telling us over here, that what has gone wrong in the past, ignore it and now move forward. And stop doing it and do not repeat it. So this is a kind of education and training of Momineen once they have become part of Momineen. He holds you accountable for those oaths which you utter with the intention of your heart. He is all hearing and all knowing. Moreover, his law is not such that it should flare up for minor matters. There is great tolerance in it, and the aim is your protection, not your destruction. And that is explained by Wallahu Ghafurun Halim, that it will give you protection as well as it has a lot of tolerance for minor mistakes here and there. But that doesn't mean that we should keep doing minor mistakes deliberately. Commonplace translation is, Allah will not call you to account for thoughtlessness in your oaths, but for the intention in your hearts, and He is oft forgiving, most forbearing. He is not oft forgiving, this is wrong. And forbearing is also not really the correct translation of Halim. It does not mean that we should say things without giving them much thought. Here the Quran is asking us to become precise in our thought, word, and deeds. Verse 226, marriage is a contract which cannot be flouted unilaterally by men. Very important aspect covered over here. Lillazina yuluna min nisaihim tarabbusu arbate ashhurin فَإِنْ فَاءُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. After this introductory principle, now come to the matter at hand. Those people who take an oath to not approach their wives, a woman cannot then be left in this state of suspension for an undefined period. They should wait for 4 months at the most. If they return to mutual relations during this period, then they have permission for this, because protection and mercy has been kept in the divine law for these kinds of errors. And this is especially for that revengeful type of feelings which men might develop. And this must be common in those days before, during the age of ignorance in Arabia. And Quran has addressed it adequately. Commonplace translation of this verse is, for those who take an oath for abstention from their wives, awaiting for 4 months is ordained. If then they return, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful. Further comments on this verse. This verse points to the state of the human psyche among some members of the Momineen, and we should keep in mind that these are the initial stages of the establishment of the system of Deen. And this point was clear when we mentioned verse 215. And Quran is gradually attracting Momineen and pointing out to them their minor errors of judgment and also other major errors of judgment. For example, this is a major error of judgment on their part. and is applicable to the transitory phase of the system of Deen. At a basic emotive level, men, due to being in a state of superior physical strength, may resort to doing injustice to their wives, where they react impulsively and boycott their wives. So it is important that all these aspects will become part of education and training of potential husband and wives before they get married. The Quran has illustrated this unjust behavior here, and in verse 2 to 1, it has pointed to this aspect that do not create hell for yourself. Obviously, with this kind of an attitude by men, that family will suffer, and if there are children over there, they will feel very insecure. And for your wives. However, there may be men who have not yet fully come to grips with Eimaan and the guidance of the Quran, who may remain so annoyed that they decide not to continue with this marriage of theirs. So then guidance is provided in the next verse. This verse also points to the system of Deen to formulate some sub-clauses regarding this issue of abstaining for more than 4 months. For example, if they go missing or disappear without any intimation, which can leave their families in limbo, the system should cater for this. By concluding the verse with فَإِنْ فَاءُوا فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. If these men return to their family, then they will find that the law of Allah is able to provide protection and opportunities for further growth. The system of Deen will scrutinize these issues in detail and ensure guidance is spelled out for its citizens. Let's go to the last verse of today's presentation, 227. If the contract of marriage is to be ended, follow the procedure put forward by the Quran. وَإِنْ أَزَمُوا الطَّلَاقَ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ. But if they resolve to become free from the contract of nikah, which is called talaq, then they should do this. That is, if they have abstained themselves for 4 months, then it is better for them that they should go for talaq rather than leave their wife and family or children, whatever are there, in a limbo. And for that, Quran has detailed the procedure for talaq, which we'll be discussing next in the next session. This is because this is the law of that Allah who hears all matters and knows all. He knows that when no chance of reconciliation remains, then it is better to separate. Commonplace translation is, but if their intention is firm for divorce, Allah hears and knows all things. And we can see there is no connection between the first part and the last part of this translation. By concluding the verse with فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ سَمِيعٌ عَلِيمٌ, the Quran has directed the Momineen to work out the sub-clauses for the process of divorce in the light of other verses on this topic. Let's go to the last verse of today's presentation. Finally, some comments to sum it up. The Quran wishes us to enjoy this earthly life by following its guidance and to come to terms with the existence of ourself, that is I, and its development within the domain of the permanent values. And this enjoyment has to be within the accountability put forward by the Quran, so that we know the effects of our choices and we are fully aware of our decision making. And then we are fully aware of the permanent values of the Quran, so that we get maximum from our life and our relations. These values are not there to usurp our freedom, not at all. In fact, Quran provides far more freedom if we follow this path, because a lot of pitfalls of man-made system also become clear to us, and we exactly know that which path to follow and what are the pitfalls of following the man-made system, but are there to enhance our value as humans, the only creation endowed with choice and intent. And we should keep in mind that we have certain intrinsic value within us of all our potentials, which Quran has pointed to. And if we bring out those using the Quranic values, then after a while we'll realize that we have become better human beings. It then tells us that even if we are born inside man-made systems, not to lose heart and fall into despair. Quran says, وَلَا تَهِنُوا وَلَا تَحْزَنُوا وَأَنْتُمُ الْأَعْلَوْنَ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. After rejecting the system of Taghut, intellectually get onto the path of the Quran in small steps. For this, we require the Quranic concept of Allah and to accept Eimaan as covered under verse 177. So Quran is not asking us to become a Momin very quickly. We have to convince ourselves, we have to go over certain aspects of doing solid deeds and bringing out our best, and then comparing it with the man-made system. And then we come to this conviction that this path defined by Allah is for us. We have covered a number of aspects of Deen as a system, and today we looked at the guidance with regard to entering into a contract of marriage, that is nikah. Allah has guided us on this, i.e., select someone who possesses the same ideology based on Eimaan. One aim of life, one path called Sirat Mustaqim, two wayfarers with the eternal destination of self-development. That is making a commitment that we will stay together even in the life of the hereafter. And Quran has pointed to that those who are Momin and Mominat over here, they will remain united in the life of the hereafter as well. Of course, the verse 103 points to that Allah has united your hearts. Then join with other Momineen in order to acquire the status of brotherhood. We should experience the joy of this togetherness on this eternal path of ours. The Quran states, وَأَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ لَوْ أَنفَقْتَ مَا فِي الْأَرْضِ جَمِيعًا مَا أَلَّفْتَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِهِمْ وَلَكِنَّ اللَّهَ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّهُ عَزِيزٌ حَكِيمٌ. And He has placed affection between their hearts. Not if you had spent all that is in the earth could you have produced that affection. So this affection becomes created free of charge. All we have to do is to accept Eimaan and then come together. But Allah has done it, for He is Aziz and Hakim. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.